The Facebook page for the book, if you haven't liked it yet, is facebook.com/showupandShineBook. And somebody posted there, he's a friend of a friend, so he's not somebody that I know, which is also a cool thing about Facebook, right? You get to connect with people that you don't really know. And he just looked at the title of the book and the subtitle, Simple Steps to Boost Your Confidence and Charisma, and decided that it was hooey. Well, and what he said was, my opinion is you either have it or you don't. And the truth is, a lot of people have that opinion, right? Anybody here think that charisma or confidence is something you're born with or you're not? And if you don't have it, you're out of luck. Anybody believe that? Yeah, maybe. I see a little line.
Maybe the charisma part.
The charisma part. You're not confident that people can get charisma.
That's maybe a little bit tougher.
Yeah.
You can gain confidence, but maybe the charisma.
Yeah. So I believe you think that too. Like maybe charisma is hard to come by. If you have it, you have it. Fred's over there going, yeah, yeah, yeah. So I, of course, see it differently because I wrote the book, right? Simple Steps to Boost Your Confidence and Charisma. And here's where it starts. It's about having a presence. And I am completely convinced that anybody can get that presence. Would we agree that I have a certain presence? Yeah? Like I'm standing here and you can see that I have presence. And why is that? This will come as a huge surprise. I'm present. That's about it. That's where presence starts, in the presence. Duh. The thing is, most of the time, most of us are not present, right? We're thinking about 1,000 other things. You know about that, don't you? That you mentioned the negative thought kind of process that goes on. We have thousands of thoughts every day, and most of them we've thought before. Yesterday, the day before, a year ago Tuesday, right? They recycle all the time. So my thoughts can be in the past or in the future. I could be thinking about what happened at work yesterday, the conversation I had with my spouse this morning, that really humiliating thing that happened in 7th grade. All of that is cycling around, right? Or I could be thinking about my future. What's coming up later today? I'm checking the time. I got to get someplace. Something is due at work or at home. So all of those take me out of the present. Make sense? So the question is, how do we get back to the present? Because the thoughts and the emotions can be in the future or the past, and sometimes I'm a time traveler because it's both at the same time. Yeah. I'm thinking about that humiliating thing from 7th grade and worrying about something that's going to happen tomorrow, and what if the same thing happens again? So the vehicle for getting present, anybody have a thought? That's it. I'm going to say your body is the vehicle to get present. So here's what I'd like you to do. Are you ready to try out a little exercise with me?
Yeah.
Everybody put your feet on the floor. So notice how we're all sitting with our feet kind of hanging someplace. So for now, yeah, thank you for putting, get stuff out of your hands and just put your feet flat on the floor. And I'd like you to even press into the floor a little bit. Whether you're sitting or standing, just actually, put a little effort there, and you can feel the muscles in your legs turn on, yes?
Yes.
Everybody got that sensation? And now have a sensation of your body in the chair, wherever the chair connects with you, and we don't need to go into the details. Sense that. And now, listen to the sound of my voice. Notice where your hands are. They might be resting on your lap, so you feel the texture of the fabric underneath them, or maybe on the arms of the chair. And breathe, to Brian's point. And let your spine just straighten up in a really natural way, so there's nothing forced about this. But as you get that firm foundation, which is the beginning of presence, you can feel your spine straighten, your head is straight up and down, so do this for me. Yep, your head is straight up and down on top of your shoulders. And as I look around the room right now, and you all can do the same thing, you all look different. I see your presence that was missing only a moment ago. And it's because you're right here, right now. Isn't that cool? So now you can relax. But don't, yeah, it's more comfortable for a lot of people. But do you see how just that moment of coming into your body really connecting with your surroundings and with your internal self brings you into the present moment. And that's really where presence starts. And do we agree that everybody could do that?
Yes.
No.
Yeah. So here's what happens when you do that practice every day, even for little snippets of time. Some energy accrues. So it's as if it leaves a little deposit. People who are, I don't want to get all woo-woo on us, but because I'm not really a woo-woo kind of gal, as those who know me will attest. But if you think, Rhonda's there voting for yes, Catherine is not woo-woo. If you think about spiritual leaders, they have what people often refer to as a presence. It's a little different from the kind of presence we mean when we talk about a business context, but in some ways it's very much the same. And how do you think they get that? It's a practice. And they accumulate a certain energy over time. So every time I come back into my body and bring myself to this present moment, a little bit of energy is deposited, and that stays with me. And over time, I develop what we call charisma. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And it doesn't seem that hard, does it? So are we willing to agree now that anybody could develop their charisma? Michelle?
Yes.
All right. I was waiting for you to get on board with that. All right, a couple more things about charisma. And let me just say, I'm not, you probably didn't come here today to listen to a big speech. I didn't come here today to give a big speech. So if you have questions, comments, observations, or debates, feel free anytime. So far, are we good, or does anybody have something they want to add to this? Good. So 2 things I want to be sure to talk about. Often people think about charisma as being the life of the party. And I hear people say you have to be outgoing or extroverted to have charisma. I don't have charisma because I'm shy, or because I'm an introvert, or because I prefer my own company to anybody else's. People say it in different ways, but I would like to disabuse you of that notion. Is there anybody here who thinks, I don't really have a shot at this charisma thing because I'm too introverted? Yeah, all right, Fred, in your case, maybe it's true. But introverts have a particular kind of charisma. I guess let me back up a little bit and say that it's not like charisma is a clearly defined thing that is always the same for every person. So we have different ways of being charismatic, and each of us individually might be charismatic in different ways at different times. A huge component of charisma is, well, here's how I put it in my book, which, by the way, is called Show Up and Shine, Simple Steps to Boost Your Confidence and Charisma. I'm learning to do that book promotion thing. Some people shine like the sun. So they give off a kind of light, and you feel it when they're in the room. They come in the room, the energy shifts, people notice that they're there. Later, people speak about them in a certain way. So I call that shining like the sun. But some people shine like the moon. So if you think about the moon, it doesn't have a light of its own. How does the moon shine? It reflects the light from others. Yeah, that's very charismatic. And think about all the songs that have been written about the moon and the poems about the moon. People love moonlight, which is reflected light. So when you reflect back somebody else's light, you're very charismatic. And introverts do that very well, better than extroverts, right? Us mouthy people, we're always talking. Like, the first thing to be a better listener is, I have to shut up, right? So that can be challenging for those of us who are outgoing or extroverted. Whereas people who are more introverted or contained have a great opportunity because they listen well, or they can listen well. Where do you have to be to listen well?
Present.
Yes, exactly so, in the present, right? Because even if I'm a relatively good listener, if I'm thinking about what I'm going to say next, or how I'm going to sell this darn book, or something that happened yesterday, can I listen to you?
No.
Not so well. Right? So presence is part of that process. But listening to other people is a huge component of charisma. So my Facebook debater said it's not authentic. Because I said everybody can cultivate certain behaviors that create confidence and charisma. And he said if you have to cultivate it, it's fake. And it can't be authentic. And And I disagree. There's a surprise. I think it's really about letting go of things that have gotten in the way of our charisma. So if we let go of the negative thoughts that you were talking about, if we let go of self-doubt, if we let go of self-consciousness, if we let go of some barrier that might be between us, not that you and I have a barrier, Sheila, but just hypothetically, if we let go of all of that, then the charisma is really there, waiting to be uncovered. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Cool. So that's kind of what I have about her charisma. I would love to engage in debate, discussion, exchange. So tell me what you're thinking about all this. Brian?
I agree 100%. I was a complete.
I love a guy who agrees 100%.
I grew up with undiagnosed learning disabilities, mild autism, ADHD, dyslexia. I didn't talk in class. I was extremely self-conscious, focused entirely on myself. What are they going to think if I say anything?
Yes.
If they think I'm dumb. Then I learned the importance of helping the other person realize how special they are.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as the attention was off me, suddenly I could open up and I could be more friendly and more social. It's just shifting that attention, being an introvert, from me to them,
Yeah.
made a big difference.
Yeah. So that made you the moon, right? Like letting them shine.
Right.
Yeah, fabulous. Anybody else, Marie?
Yeah, I agree with Brian exactly, because before I did the radio show, I was a feature reporter. So nobody heard my interviews because I never shared it. I couldn't do it anyway. But I mean, I did develop listening skills and wanted to learn more about the person. But now on the radio, I transferred that, and I'm not self-conscious about how people hear me. I do try to have a professional voice at all times, but I also let myself go a little bit when I talk with people, because they usually have some really interesting anecdotes, and it just makes the show fun. When I talk to nonprofits and corporate partners.
Cool. I'm sorry, I lost your name.
Denise.
Denise, thank you.
Yes, Kathy. So I love everything that you're saying.
Thank you.
It's great. The one thing I want to go to is the whole aspect of communication. Because with communication, 90% of that is listening, as we all know. I was at a networking event where the introduction was to be done in a certain way. And the fact of the person asked, please tell about the most influential book that you've read in your life and why it influenced you. After about the third person, they started just talking about the current book they were reading. Because when the person said book, they went, oh my God, I got to think of a book. Where am I going? What am I going to say?
That's interesting.
Exactly.
Right.
So it is that being present and listening in the moment
Yeah.
with what everyone is saying. And we can't multitask anymore. We have to unite them, which is being present.
You know, it's interesting about multitasking because it really doesn't exist.
Exactly.
You know, people talk about multitasking, and some of us talk with pride about multitasking, right? Well, I'm a good multitasker. It's nonsense. The way the brain actually operates is it flips quickly between two things, or three or four. So we're not actually thinking about the same thing at the same time. We're thinking about this, and then this, and then this, and then this, and this. This is why when you drive, you shouldn't be on the cell phone. This is fascinating. There was a research project at the University of Illinois. We all know that driving is impaired when we're on the cell phone or texting, right? We all agree to that, and that's why they have laws against it. But the opposite is also true. Your conversation is impaired by driving. I mean, they literally tested people for comprehension and retention of information. And when they were driving and listening, their comprehension and retention was diminished. Interesting, huh? Yes.
What you're talking about is attention. And, you know, we are where our attention is. So if you're driving, you're not giving your full attention to the conversation. If you're on a cell phone, you're not giving your full attention to the driving and vice versa.
Yeah.
That's what you're talking about.
It's true.
And as far as what you were talking about, when you quit focusing on your doubts and your fears and placed your attention on your desires and what you wanted, those fears and anxieties went away because they're incongruent. You can't be focused on what you want and on other people and being positive and allow negative things to come in.
Yeah, it kind of
Totally
drowns it out. Yeah, Tom, and then help me.
What about
Aniva.
Aniva.
Very
All right, Tom.
disagreeing with the guy on Facebook about it being genuine if you learn it. Just with anything. When you learn it in the beginning, yeah, it might not seem genuine, but you keep going and you keep learning it. I've known Brian for a long time. I saw the awkwardness a long time ago when he first started going out and networking.
Catch me later, it'll be there too.
Yeah. Now you see him someplace and it is genuine
Yeah.
because he's been
You're right.
working on it and he's been working on it probably harder than anyone else. And it becomes genuine. That's his personality, and he's just taking it up a notch to show it to everybody else.
I coach people on professional presence and presentation skills, and I'm actually I have forms over there if somebody's interested in signing up. I can do about a dozen strategy sessions. If you'd like to spend half an hour or so on the phone and talk about how you might benefit from coaching or what might be helpful for you, I'd be happy to do that. When I teach this stuff, people often say, I don't know if you can learn presence or presentation skills. And I think it's like any other physical skill. I think, the first time you pick up a tennis racket, you don't know how to hold it, you don't know how to stand, it's awkward, you can't even imagine yourself hitting a ball. But if you work with a coach and practice and take some lessons, pretty soon it becomes much more natural and you know exactly what you're doing with a tennis racket. And presentation skills or professional presence are really the same thing, learned skills. Fred. Wait, I'm sorry, I promised it was your turn
I'll give you a
next.
prize to get it right this time.
Annabelle.
Annabelle.
Aniba.
Annabelle.
Aniba, great.
All right. By the time we're done here, I promise.
You'll probably
And
never
it's not
forget
that
it.
I'm not listening, it's that my tongue doesn't do it right. Ask anybody. I'm sorry. All right, go ahead.
Now, I wanted to mention, I had a class in graduate school that talked about executive leadership. And prior to that class,
Can you all hear him? No.
prior to that class, I thought that.
See, okay, so here's what I would get.
Stand up.
Stand up and straighten your, see, you're leaning forward when you talk, and when we do that, even me, I have a big voice, and if I lean over like this, you'll hear my voice more constricted. Do you hear that?
Yes.
Yeah, so you want to be open across here when you're talking, especially to a group, and look at the person farthest away,
Farthest away.
because that'll help your voice go in the same direction. It's about attention, what you said a minute ago. Your voice goes where you're looking. Okay, so talk to Rhonda.
What I was saying is that I had a class that was about executive leadership. And prior to that class, I thought that leadership was also something that people were born. They were born leader. They were born to lead people. And that was my interpretation. I thought that for years and stuff. And through this class, I learned that you can learn to be a leader based on adopting certain tactics on your daily basis, whether it's being an expert in your field, delivering what you promise, things like that.
Yep.
People respond to that. So
Yeah.
kind
That's a
of goes
great
back-
example,
goes back to what we
Anibal.
were talking about. Very good. I'm impressed.
All right, thank you. Fred.
I've heard rumor that you're on a radio show. Is that true?
As a matter of fact, it is. Thank you. I should have mentioned that earlier. You might know, or maybe not, some of you have actually come up to me and said, I remember listening to you with Larry Lujak, to which I said, you are dating me? Please stop. That was a long time ago. It makes it feel like I have dinosaurs stamped on my forehead.
No.
I was in radio for 25 years, and much of that time I was at WLS. And I did work with Larry Lujak and then with Fred Winston, and then it became a talk station. I became a talk show host. And then, after 18 years there, somebody woke up one day and said, I don't think she's that good. Knife in my heart. And I did a couple more years at Oldies 104.3 with John Landecker. There's another familiar name.
Yeah.
And then I said, this radio stuff is over for me, and now it's time for something fresh. So here I am. And then I got sucked into radio shows again by the aforementioned Fred, who invited me to substitute for just a few weeks on a show called Biz Buzz. Well, actually, it was then called something else. So I did a show or two with Michelle, and then I said, geez, this is really fun. I forgot how much I liked it. So Michelle and I do a show on the Linked Local Network called Biz Buzz, and we buzz about biz, as the name implies. That means we talk about small businesses and sometimes bigger businesses. We interview people who have an expertise that other business people need. So later today, we'll be interviewing a writer who is, he says freelance isn't the right word because too much of that is free and not enough lance. So he calls it independent writing, but he's a writer for hire. But we'll also be talking about what business people should be writing for themselves, how you can get to be a better writer, and then when it's time to bring in a pro. So that's a pretty typical show for us. Last week we had a guy who talked about branding and marketing and how to identify your brand and embody your brand. And I thought last week was one of the best shows we've done in a long time. It was really cool. So Biz Buzz on the Linked Local Network. It's live Tuesday afternoons at 4, but of course you can listen anytime if you just find the link. Did I adequately promote our show? Thank you. And the last thing is, I don't have a book. You're probably wondering why the author people didn't show up with a book, right? Boy, have I learned a lot about this process. Anybody here thinking about writing a book? I know Brian's already got his out. You're thinking about it? Denise, have you written it, or you're writing it, or?
In the process.
In the process.
Yeah.
Phil?
Thinking about it.
Melissa, written?
For the 12th time, yes.
Okay, we should talk, my friend.
I
Because I have learned a lot in this process. I'll tell you, I'm checking the time. How am I doing, Patty?
5 more minutes.
Okay, so I signed up for a coaching program that began last January called Hell Yeah Stars. It's about becoming a personality brand. And the coaches are a business coach, Suzanne Evans, and a speaker author, Larry Winget. And part of the process was go home and write a book. And they weren't kidding. We picked a title, we picked a cover, they sent us home and said, write the book, and your first draft is due April 2nd. So I wrote my book. What else was I going to do? And thank goodness for that, because I've been, like you, I've been talking about it, thinking about it, planning about it, for a long time. So that's how I got my book written. Patty had a proof edition, which I'm not thrilled with, but the real edition is going to be beautiful, and oh boy, have I learned a lot about technology and production and mistakes. It's just been a process. So the book should be out, I hope, by next week, the end of the week. It is now available for pre-order on Amazon. And my audiobook will be uploaded to Amazon. It's already into Audible, which is Amazon's audiobook service, and it should be available within a couple of days. Separately, a company in Terre Haute is producing a CD set for me. For me, it just made sense to do an audiobook because people know me by my voice. So I've got that coming, and the actual physical book will be in my hot little hand sometime next week. Which means if you're dying to buy my book, you can't do it today. But you could order it on Amazon, or you could write down your name, give me your card, and tell me that you want it, and we'll get back in touch. I put a sign-up sheet over there. I also do a newsletter every other week, which some of you already subscribe, and it's fair to say it's really good stuff. Is that fair to say?
I would say yes.
Yep. So, and I don't put too much crap in your inbox. I try to be judicious about that. So if you'd like to sign up for my newsletter and get my No Buts Action Guide to getting your message out, please sign up on my sign-up sheet. Let me know if you want the book. And if you're a candidate for some coaching to develop your presence, let me know that too, and we can talk. And thank you so much. I appreciate your being present here. Yeah, I saw you sit up straight. Oh, there she goes, getting present. All right, I appreciate you being present here today. Thank you.